Okay, my screen got moved around a little bit. Your screen would probably look a little bit different where some of these toolbars are in different places. But what I like about this program is that I can actually move these toolbars around and create a little more room on my screen. What's on my screen right now are Motifs, and we're going to look at those in a minute. But first, I'm going to start off with just some of the basics of this program. So I'm going to go ahead and click on, New File. And I have the ability to do some automatic things in this program, as well as the manual things. And most of your designs, you may do like a combination of both automatic and manual. But let me show you what the program's capable of. I'm going to go to Image and insert an image. And what comes up by default is a bitmap, EP. That's a bitmap. That's because, that's generally the most standard images that most home sewers have access to. You can go to some of the clip art sites now, and you can purchase, EPS or vector graphics. But, the two that we generally see are BMP and WMF. And if it's a WMF image, it's not going to show right away. You have to come down here and you have to say all files or WMF. Okay? So I'm going to say all files. The WMF format on my system, it says AI on it, meaning Illustrator, because that's the program I've told to open those images when I edit. But a true WMF image is this. It's very clean. Some of the lines may break up a little bit, but it's a very clean vector image. What we end up with in a clip art package is a WMF image that really isn't a WMF image. It wasn't created in a vector program necessarily. Or if it was, it was saved as a bitmap and then somebody saved it as a WMF image, right? So a true WMF image is clean vector. That doesn't mean that everything just goes according to plans all the time. But, for the most part, it's a little bit easier to work with. These are some of the images that, I have that they're just clip art. And, we're going to look at these. The first one, let's start off with this one. Okay, it's a very simple image. I'm going to go ahead and open it. The image instantly put into my hoop, and you can see I can select this image, which means I can just grab it and kind of resize it if I want. And, make it larger or smaller. Okay, I can also rotate it and do all kinds of other things with it, just like I can anything in the program. But, I'm going to go ahead and just make it a little bit bigger because sometimes that makes it a little easier to work with. Or, some of the images we end up with are very, very small. So here's my image, and I have to prepare it for any automatic process I want to do. So here is the icon over here to the right called Image Preparation. And what this is going to do is kind of clean up any extra colors. In this case, there's, two colors. The only colors that are available are two. Okay? If I had a more colorful image, it might tell me I had like 100 available, right? So two colors. The background color has to be considered a color. For example, if I decide to reduce this to one color, A, it's not going to let me because, you have a background. But B, everything would turn one color. So I wouldn't see anything, and neither would the program. So I'm going to go ahead and say OK. And now this image has been cleaned up and prepared for the automatic digitizing, and I have a couple of options. I could use, the kind of pick tool. So I could pick an area. In this case, it's all attached, so it would work all at once anyway. Or I can use the truly automatic and just click and let it do whatever it wanted. Now, this also has options. Any menu that has these little arrows or these little triangles has what's called a flyout menu. Okay, so this is the pick each section portion, and this is my truly automatic. And if I click on that little triangle, I get a couple of options. This first option is, bam, the program decides what is going to happen, and here you go, and it's done. For most of us, we're going to want a little bit of control. So we're going to come over to this other option, which has a little tulip, and it's got the little checklist to it. And that's going to let me control a few things. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that icon. What opens up my Click to Design option. Okay, in my fills, it says Auto Select. What Auto Select does is it looks at an area and says, oh, wow, that's really big. We're going to make it a complex fill. Or, that's small enough to be, a satin stitch, right? Or I can just tell it, make it all weave or make it all satin. In this case, it's a safe thing to say make it all satin because of the lines and the size of, this particular image, right? Detail would be if I had like outlines or, wanted some detail to it. In this case, I'm going to say satin lines anyway, even though really that's, not going to make any outline. I could outline something if I wanted, or I could add in a border. A border is going to be satin or satin lines. An outline is going to be a running stitch. I very rarely use this option because I can outline and maybe get a little better effect either manually or with some other options in the program. So we said satin. You see over here it says omit colors, and that's faded out. We're telling it we don't want it to do the black. We don't want it to do the black color at all. We want it to use the white color. And the program's automatically selected this. It doesn't always automatically select this because different images have different colors in them. So I'm going to go ahead and say OK. And the program's going to think about how to do this design. And the more complicated and the longer the program takes to think. But you can see, bam, I've got a pretty decent design. Let me go ahead and I'm going to hide this image so you can see what's going on. I'm going to change the color here so that you can see this a little bit better. Okay, so this is my design. It's not perfect, but it's pretty good for an automatic design, right? Because this is all one piece, I really don't have a lot of options. I can try to make some corrections here, but if I go over to this little sequence view bar, see over to the right, the sequence view, this shows my image, which we have hidden. This shows the color of the design since it's all in color. But if I click on this little objects button here, I get all the little pieces. You can see here's a little piece here, it's a travel stitch. And if I scroll down, it shows all the pieces of the design. So you'd be able to come in here and make some corrections. Like maybe if I don't like this, I could click on that and say, oh, let's just get rid of that. Or I could come and I can left click and drag and select a section to get rid of. You just want to make sure you didn't get rid of something you want to keep, right? But, so I can remove things and then come in and work on them. Okay, but I wanted to show you what the automatic's capable of. And if we zoom in a little bit, the program has a couple of zoom options. I can zoom in and it just kind of jumps up, or zoom out. I can come up here and say, oh, zoom to 1,000%, right? Or I can press the B key and left click and drag around the area I want to zoom into. So, even at the top here, I might want to edit a little bit and move some nodes around, but for the most part, the design is not too bad. Okay, so that's the quick, here you go, you've got a design automatic option. All right, so I'm not going to say that. I'm going to go ahead and just close this out and open up another file. I'm going to make a new file, and then I'm going to go back to image and insert an image. And I go ahead and use this bitmap because this bitmap has a few different things in it than that, simple image did. This has more colors. So I'm going to go ahead and say OK. And if, by the way, when you do this, you don't get a preview over here, there's a little button here or a little checkbox you can select it. It'll preview your images. We'll go ahead and insert this and increase the size of this. And if I hold my key, I increase proportionally from the center. See what's going on? Where if I drag, I'm just dragging, and it's just resizing it, not from the center. So if you want to, resize evenly from the center, let me go back and undo. Hold your Shift key as you drag these little corners, and it'll resize. Okay, so there we go. Okay, I'm going to check on a couple of our stragglers to see if they are able to hear us yet. And we've got a couple coming in and a couple that were having some trouble. Okay. Okay, I have one person who's still trying to get in. Hold on 1 second. I'm sorry. Okay, so we've got this image, and we're going to go through the automatic portions on this again too. And let me go ahead and move these around again. What's going to happen is this. When I take this more complicated image into that automatic, it's going to try to clean it up. So I'm going to come over here and prepare my artwork, image preparation. And you can see on this one it says there are 237 colors available. Unless I really am a glutton for punishment and want to do 237 potential thread changes, I'm going to reduce this a little bit. First, I'm going to look at what I see. You've got the white background, that's color 1. You've got the blue bird and then the darker blue wing, so that's colors 2 and 3. We have the brown, and then we have cream and orange. So I have 6 colors because I remember I have to count my background. So if I say this has reduced it to 5 colors, which means, maybe it saw like an extra orange. Well, no, it's got this white background, so it's seeing the white of his face too. Okay, but if I look really close, I can see a little bit of blue straggling colors that have been converted. Maybe they were, they were a different orange, but their closest value was to the blue. So that's why I converted it to blue over in here. We'll see them once we make this. So it's been reduced to 5 colors because the white background and the face are being seen. If I want to try 6 colors, I can see if that makes any difference. And, it might have, it's hard to tell on the screen, but it might have. So we're going to leave it at 6 because this is a little bit beige and this is white. So we'll say, okay, and let's see what the program comes up with. Okay, that's prepared. Now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to use my, click to design and make some decisions. I'm saying, here is, the brown color, orange, the darker blue, the beige, which is being seen here, I believe. Maybe not. It might be seen over in here from the looks of that. And then this is being omitted. Okay, that's the background color. And that's okay. Even if I don't get the face here, I can still recreate it. This beige color, since I can see it over here in that outline, I'm going to omit it. Did you see what happened when I moved that color? Watch the screen right here along the edge and along the edge here. Okay, this beige color, I can just drag and omit. So if I had left it at 5 colors or instead of the 6, I would have had those colors be the blue pieces, and I wouldn't have been able to omit them. I would have to clean them up later. In this case, I can just get rid of them because they're viewed as a different color. Okay, we're not going to worry about outlines or borders. I'm going to tell this that I want everything to be a weave fill and just say OK on this one. The program's going to think, and it's going to make the design. And here we go. And what I'm missing, if I have my image, what I'm missing is this, his face, right? Not a big deal. I'm going to go ahead and turn the image back on and use some of the other automatic options. Like I can click to fill. So I'm going to go ahead and click to fill. And I'm going to go ahead and select this and this. So I'm able to select those pieces, even though they're the same color as the background, and fill that in just with the click of a mouse. Now, to move those so that the brown eyes stay on top, I would go to colors, and I would probably have this stitch first. Okay, now, something that the program has done is see these little eyes here? The little, tiny eyeball. And in here too, it's kind of poked holes in those. And, hold on, I'm kind of getting a message here. Okay. Val's going to leave us because she's going to go on the other one. Okay, so we have these little holes, and we can fill those in, or we can leave them as is. But generally, when you have, let me undo that. When I have something like this, I'm going to go ahead and get rid of these and then manually punch them and just fill those holes in. Sometimes the program lets you do it, and sometimes it doesn't. But worst case, if it won't let me fill those in the way I want, I have this automatic option again that I can use. Okay, does that make sense to everybody?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So if I say, really, I don't like that, I'm going to go ahead and bump off his head. I have a travel line because it was hiding those orange lines underneath. So I can click on that travel line. I can get rid of that travel line too, because these eyes are going to sit on top. But now I have to think about what I'm going to do with my sequencing and, and make that spot. So right now we're just going to start with this. Now what happens with this is this. These options let me make holes. So if I select this option, see the little carved out piece right next to that? If I select that option that has like the little hole in the apple, it's going to make all of those holes that I'm trying to get rid of. If I select this option, it's going to come in here and I'm going to select the brown, and it's going to make that brown with no holes, which since these are little tiny pieces, that's a good thing. But I need to make sure that this moves to the top, and I can worry about resequencing later. And now I've got no holes underneath these eyes, no holes under the whiskers or the nose, and that's probably a better option for this design because, these are small little pieces, and I don't always have to have holes for small little pieces. I would do the same thing, with the dog's face and eyes, right, in his nose. The problem would be these are big enough spaces that I wouldn't want to do that. But again, I wouldn't want those holes there. So, I might have to do a little more work on this one. I might have to actually make holes, but I have that option. Okay, so this is the gist you can do with the automatic, and there's two types. There is the, click, you've got the design, and you have a little less control, except you can come in and edit later version. And then there's the click, I've got a design, I don't like this, let's get rid of it, and use the magic wand or the click to fill option and select those areas. And, each thing lets me do a little bit different things. From here, I have the option to change the fills, to change my settings, or I can select everything here, just left click and hold your mouse button down and drag everything. Or I can always go up to edit and then select all. And it's everything in the design as well. Then I can use another automatic setting, which is in my setup. So if I go to setup, I can choose my fabric. And when I choose my fabric, what this does is it changes the settings all the way through this design. It'll change my stitch settings, my underlay, my compensation, based on what I select. Okay, and the way that it's changing is, do you see down in the right-hand corner here, I've got a stitch count, and I'm going to go ahead and do what I did last night and kind of draw an arrow down here. Okay, see down here? All right, watch that number. Okay, right now I'm in pure cotton, right? If I decide that maybe I want to do a stretch knit, and I select that, and I say OK, watch the number where that arrow is. You can see it has changed my stitch settings so that it will work better with whatever fabric I've selected to sew this on. And, that's kind of a nice starting place. There are some things that you have to look at, the type of thread you're using, the brand of thread you're using, but it's a good starting place to get some standard designs that will help you create a better design overall. You guys have any questions so far?
Yes.
Okay.
Are you calling the holes the areas where there's no stitching?
Mm-hmm.
You're going to stitch over, like the eyes are stitched over the brown?
Right. See here's the bird's body.
Uh-huh.
Okay, let me move it over here. Here's the hole where the eye is.
Yeah.
See his little tiny eye?
Mm-hmm.
This is bad digitizing.
Okay.
And the reason is that this is little, and even if I put compensation in there, I have a really good chance that this little tiny hole is going to show some gapping.
Okay.
The wing, not so much. It's big, it's gonna sew a little different. It's gonna push the fabric a little bit more, pull the fabric a little bit more.
Uh-huh.
This is gonna be basically almost all pull.
Okay.
Because it's so small. So I don't want like a little hole like this. I do have the options here, like I can, use an editing option, and here's one called fill holes.
Mhm.
So see how it fills them, though? You don't
Yes.
necessarily always like the way it fills them. For this would be okay. For the eye, it would be okay.
Mhm.
But, sometimes it's just as easy to just get rid of that piece and come over here and create a new body. And I always have the option, if I go to edit, I'm going to zoom in around the little bird body here. If I go to edit, which is this, I have the option of cutting a hole.
Okay.
And it's always easier to go out of 3D because then you can get rid of this control so I can see what's going on. It's always easier to go out of 3D and then use this cut option. And the cut option, I can kind of control, with my left or right click how this shapes. And you see I'm going inside of the shape that I want to cut, right? I'm going to leave a little bit of a margin, and I hit enter, and enter again, and I've now made a hole.
Okay.
So, always option in, it's better. Design quality, it is absolutely better. Whoops, let me get out of that tool. It's absolutely better. Let me move this up here to, I'll just move down here. This is a better way to do this. Okay, and I'm not sure where the eye is. If it's that one, yeah, we'll just drag him down. So now the eye is stitched on top of him, and I don't have that hole anymore. Okay, so that's always a better way to do that. And even with the dog, I could, pick the area and then carve out the pieces I wanted, and not have those little holes. Or, I could just manually punch it. In that case, I would just probably manually punch it. But so those are the options. Let me go ahead and clear off the annotation off my screen. Okay, now I was talking about motifs, so I'm going to go ahead and close this window. And this one of my favorite things in the program are motifs, because I can use, the built-in motifs in the program. I can make my own motifs in the program, and I can create these running lines. Like what you're seeing on the screen right now is from one of our Digitizing webinars on heirloom stitches. And we did all of this. Every single piece in here is from a motif. And these are just lines. So, this motif, for example, I've got these grouped, but I'm going to go ahead and, I'm in rotate, hold on. Okay, let me go ahead down to group. And this is just a line, really, truly a line. That's satin stitch. Let me get the satin stitch so you can see what we did. Okay, this is the motif. And I don't know if you guys can, I'll drag it off to this and kind of zoom in. Okay, what that is one little tiny piece of something created once, and I can use this from now till the cows come home. And that's one of the fun things about this program. I can make my own motifs, or I can use from the built-in motifs to create fills and lines. So, this little motif, to give you an idea, I can also move these. Each one of these little diamonds represents a motif, and you can see the squares around each one. So what happened is I made this square and then said, oh, hey, put it on a line. And, was able to save that so I can use it over and over and over again. And that's one of the fun things. Like, I think last night we were looking at, this daisy. That's also a motif. One daisy, and we made it into a line. We can also use it for other things like a fill. So it's a lot of fun. So I'm going to go ahead and open a new window. And we'll look at some motif lines. Let me go ahead and I'll just put a bigger hoop in to see a little bit better. Okay, on the motifs, what I can do is just use a very simple tool. Here's my running tool, right? I'm just going to make a line. This program's kind of neat because I can left click and I get, a point. And if I right click, I get a curve. And you don't see that until you place the next point. If I make a mistake, I can backspace. So I'm going to go ahead and just make like a straight line right now and then press enter. There's my line. It's just a simple straight line. But if I want to, give it a little more pizzazz, then I can go into the settings. And that's just this little object details. It's like a little checklist. And I can go in here and say, okay, here's my line stitch. It's a single running line. I can tell it, how long I want that stitch to be. Or I can come in here and say, let's make this a candle wicking line, a backstitch line, or a motif run line. And I've got a lot of options here. One of which, the sculpture line, just so you guys know, if you put invisible thread in your needle, it creates a hand look quilt stitch in your design. And it's really kind of neat. So, you can create like a quilted pattern for a design and use that sculpture stitch. But I'm going to go with the motif line for right now. The motif line opens up to this default. This is the default motif. I could just say, okay, I like that. It's kind of a big one. It's 25, millimeters because you've got all these little tiny curves. If I say, okay, I guess I have to select the line first. That would be good, huh? Sorry about that. All right, let's go back in and say motif. And I'm just going to select that. You got this cute little daisy pattern, right? And they're just running stitches. And, that was kind of quick and painless. I can curve this, if I want to make a curved line. I can use the, left click, right click, left click. Okay, left click, right click gives me a curve, and left click, and I've got a nice little arc. And then go into my settings. Oh, let's make this one a motif line. And if you remember when I was showing you the motif I made, when I click on this edit, it becomes like lettering. I can actually move these around. Okay. And if you look, I have all these little boxes, right? Which mean I can, reshape it. So I could actually come up with some pretty neat little techniques. I can make it bigger. I can stretch it out. So I can kind of make every other one of these different if I want. Okay, so those are, a little bit on the motifs. Go ahead and get rid of this. I will make another line real quick. Okay, here's our original line. It's back to a straight line, so I'm going to go ahead and use that. And hold on, I've got a little message coming in. Okay, we answered that one. Okay, so now I've got a straight line again. I'm going to go back into my object details or property, depending on what you're used to them being called, and say motif. And I've got this neat option. This is my default, but I always have the option to come up here and say, oh, let's pick one of these. Well, looking at these names, unless I want to memorize a whole lot of stuff, or click one by one to figure out what they were, I'd lose my mind. So this program has this neat little option called Select. And I come up and I open up this little window that shows me what the patterns are. These are kind of your standard maybe stitching or heirloom or blackwork kind of stitches, right? But some of these have some satin fills to them. And as you scroll down, like, here's this is kind of cute. This would be a little more satiny. And you kind of have to look at these or look in the back of your book to figure out what they are. But they've got all kinds of cute things, bows, tulips, scrolls, these little satin-filled things. This is one of my favorites. That's one of my favorites, and they're kind of neat, right? There's like a little fleur-de-lis, so I could click any of these and say make current, and there you go. But what else it does is if I made my own motifs, I can go to select and drop this down. And here's what's in the program. You have the black work option, and these are built into the program. Okay, these are, some of these are quite large. Some of these are great for fills. This one's quite large. Let me move the line so you can see it. But these are, pretty intricate. Those built in. When I make my own, I can also access here. Say, okay, here's Bernie's motifs. Here's wing needle motifs that I've made. Here's from our digitizing classes. So we can select these, and you can see it's a combined type of design, right? Here's the daisy that was in the one. Here's a little scallop. you can make as many of these as you want, or you can delete them. If I select them and say, you know what, let's just get rid of that one, it just deletes it. So I can, add them or I can delete them quite easily. So I'm going to go ahead and say okay, and there's my little daisy. Now, that's motifs from a line. If I select like a fill, I'm just going to grab, the little fill icons over here. These are manual punch icons. This is kind of your free manual punch. This is your, turning angle or satin or column, depending on what you're used to hearing. This is a parallel weave. That's going to be a circle. That's a square. That's a circle. That's what you get. These little icons that have the triangles have flyouts, which means I can come in here and I can pick different things. Each one of these. So I'm going to go ahead and just work with the square. But if I look at this, it says, oh, motif fill. So I'm going to select that and just drag, a little square rectangle. And there's my default fill again. And, it filled in with a default, and I just go, and I can change this to this. Let me select that. And I can do the same thing. I can come up here and I can select from any motifs in the program or any of the ones that I've made. I can make that a fill. So, the motifs are kind of fun, but one of the things I enjoy the most about the motifs, and I refer to this as the stress buster. If you have done digitizing, there's times where you either don't know quite what you want or just won't do what you want, and you get very frustrated. And it's times like those I come over to this little gallery icon, and I end up with basic, little embroidery gallery shapes here. But they're a lot of fun. Like I can come in here and I can say, okay, I'm really just going to pick this one. And what happens is I get this option on the screen. I can place these anywhere I want. So some of the running stitch ones, maybe I want to make like a little texture on something. I can just place those anywhere I want. I don't have to have a fill or a line. I can do this individually. And I just click. Like the first point I click places where I wanted to start. The second point's a little bit different. But if all I want is one, I just hit escape and I've got one of those on my screen. Okay. If I want to do a little more than this one, I just come in here and pick what I want, and I'm going to pick a little smaller one this time. And there used to be a leaf in here I'm trying to find that I kind of liked. I always thought it was kind of interesting, but you have to kind of scroll through and look at these or look in the back of the book. So we'll go ahead and go with the kitchen one. So, I'm going to left click. That places the first point, right? And then last time I just left click and boom, I've got the little carrot there. But, if I want to do something a little different, remember left click places the first point. I can rotate anywhere I want to place that second point. Okay? And even better, I don't have to put them right together. I can come over here and move this anywhere I want. And there's another thing. If I right-click my mouse, it places that first point, but it flips this so that I could do anything I wanted. And when I'm done, I just hit escape. So that's why I call it the stress buster, because you can come in here and you can play with the motifs. You don't have to worry about making anything. And it just sometimes feels good to see something created on your screen, right? Yeah. All right, ladies. Now I'm going to look at a little bit of lettering and some monogramming options. And there's a lot of things in the program. So this is just kind of like a little overview real quick of some of the things that you can do. There's actually another segment of the program too called Design Gallery that is really like a cataloging program. It'll let you convert designs. You can see them. You can print out the pictures of them. You can print out the thread charts. You can print out a template even. And from this program, you can also print a template with a lot of information or as little information as you want. So the design gallery is kind of neat. If you get a chance, and you own the program, take a look at what the design gallery does. So, but we're not going to cover that in this. I'm going to go ahead and do a little bit of lettering. And the lettering is very simple. Here's my controls here. This is the monogram. This is the lettering. If I click on that block, I get taken immediately into the lettering interface. And I can do a lot of things here. First, I told you that the lettering in the program was really good because you have a lot of pre-digitized fonts. And what that means is these are professionally done. These have been digitized by, a professional digitizer out of a commercial company, actually. You can see there's a lot of them here. What's nice is that generally it's something small, like there's one in here that's small. There's a couple actually that say small. What happens is you end up with very good small lettering. Okay, like the octagon monogram, could move these around. Those are kind of unique. And you can treat as a font, but you can also move them around a little bit as well. So I'm going to come down here, and there were a couple in here that, like this would be a difficult font for our program to, just kind of try to automatically do. And that's what's so nice about this. Okay, and I'm just going to type that in. Here's my size. 10 millimeters is fairly small. I might want to, make that a little bit bigger. But you can see this is set for that size. So it's probably going to digitize very well at that small size, right? I'm going to go ahead and make it a little bit bigger. We'll make it 15. With 100%, do you want to make it wider? You have a lot of things. Do you want to slant it to make it italic? You can do that as well. I'm going to leave this as is. These are your justifications. So if I had more than one line of text, I would tell it, do I want it to line to the left, to the right, to the center? Do I want it to spread out, evenly? The select character, let's go into special characters. Okay. And we'll just put that one in. Okay, so now I've got the little special character in there. This is your orientation. Right now we're just going to do the standard orientation. I'm going to say okay. And when I first started this program years and years and years ago, I thought, where's my text, right? Like, where's the beef? Well, you come over here and you just place a click, one click, and your text is made. And then you can drag it around and resize it. For being fairly small, that has done a very, very good job because those are pre-digitized. Okay, so that's one of the advantages of having so many different fonts in the program that are pre-done. You can see even the little asterisk kind of cute over there, right? Now, you also have TrueType font lettering. If you go to work on lettering, like if I want to put more lettering, I have this selected. You can see here's my settings up here. And I have a couple of different things that we'll look at. But if I want to make new lettering, click off to the side and then click on the lettering again. Look at some TrueType fonts. We looked at one yesterday that was a little different. These are the fonts I have on my computer. That's their TrueType fonts or their PostScript fonts. You can see the little TT next to them. And scroll through. You can see some of them are a little more creative looking. And I think all the way down to with pictures, right? This one's kind of a neat font. It's a little bigger. Okay. But, there's a lot of probably TrueType fonts on your computer already. And then you can always download some for free, or you can purchase a pack for about, 200,000 fonts or something for about $20. You don't want to install them all on a computer, that will slow them down, but I'm going to go up to this one font up here that's a little more complicated. The advantage of having all these fonts, right? And I think it's actually a okay, there we go. This font is, a complicated little font. It's got all these points and, it's got like little scrolls off to the side a little bit, off of the edges of like the bars across the A. I'm going to go ahead and make this a little bit bigger. I'll make this 30. And I'm just going to type the word test in and show you, what this does. Again, click and it'll be made. And you can see it did a really good job. Even if I drag this up, it did a good job of handling all these odd little things in the lettering, right? So it does handle, excuse me, most TrueType fonts quite well. You have to be reasonable in what you expect about a digitizing program. TrueType Fonts. A lot of the wingdings like this one has wingding pictures in it, and it'll handle some of them, but you can't expect it to take like a very complicated picture font and turn it into this gorgeous thing. Now Deco Caps, it'll handle most of this quite well. I'm going to go ahead and make this all capitals. I'm asking a lot of the program. You can see all of the scrolling, and I'm going to increase the size because there are small pieces to this lettering, and say okay, and this will kind of give you of what the program is and isn't capable of. Okay, this turned it good. Okay, so it's capable of doing quite a bit. Now, a font with a lot of lines, or that looks like somebody had shaky handwriting, it would probably handle it to an extent, but you have to really look at that font. If it doesn't work, sometimes it's the font, because fonts are outlines, and the outlines for print don't have to be perfect. For digitizing, they have to be pretty good. And so this did a very good job on that. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and get rid of this, and we're going to look at some of the lettering options. If I click on this, I have options. I can go back into my fonts, or I can just grab them real quick here, right? Or I can go into my object properties, or I can just double click, and those object details or properties will open up. Okay, here is my lettering tab. The rest of this is all stitch settings. Okay, in the lettering tab, I can come back in here and I can make corrections. Like if you're like me and you are a horrific typist, there's nothing worse than, embroidering something and leaving one of the letters out, or misspelling. It's like a bad tattoo, right? And, so you can come in here and you can double check, your typing or your spelling on something and make corrections quickly. Like I took out the little asterisk, but I can also do some other things, and I'll explain some of the settings in the lettering. Let's start with the letter sequence down here. If you are doing hats, or you are doing something that goes over a seam, you may want to look at this center out lettering and select that. And what this does is it starts from the center and sews to one side, comes back to the center and sews to the other side. And why that's great for hats is that it smashes down one side and then comes back to the middle and smashes down the other side evenly, rather than trying to smash the hat down as you go, right? You want to do that evenly, even on a commercial machine. Or if you're going over a seam, then you have a little more control over how this lettering sews over like a hump or a seam, or something that is going to cause some difficulty, right? Stretchy fabric even. Sewing from the center out and then coming back to the center and sewing out the other way will give you a better result. Okay, so that's what this does. And I'm just going to leave it in line for right now. And I want to look at some of these options. If I select this option, which is vertical, and I say OK, it now places, let me zoom out so you can see, it places my lettering straight up and down. Okay, and I can always resize this and squish it down, or I could just go into the settings and resize it. Okay. If I make a mistake, undo is always good. And, I can get back to where I was. Now, the other thing, if you look up here with the lettering selected, you have all of these options, and you have something called lettering arts. These are, basically a couple more frames or a couple more paths. If I say curved and I say, select that, it gives me these little nodes to pull, and I can quickly envelope or recurve or reshape the lettering, right? It's a little bit different than some of the other settings, like these. It's a little different than these. Like this is a text path. The lettering art is enveloping. It's a reshape. So if I select a new text path, for example, I select this one. When I come back in the program, it wants me to, maybe I can't do it that way. I think I should do that one for batch. It's going to control where these are placed. Let me try this one. Spacing with size, key proportions. We'll go to the oval. If I click on this, see how it places it on an oval automatically? Those are text paths. So if I use a text path and then come in here and say, oh, let's put this in a diamond shape, I can, reshape the lettering even more. Now, just because you can do something, like in this case right here, doesn't mean that you should, right? I just want to point out that you can, because your letters would be a little more difficult to stitch. But, that gives you an idea of what you can do with lettering. And, it's something that you should play with. And it gives you that option of filling in lettering around something, reshaping it around something, creating it in a circle, or I'm going to go ahead and delete this using some of the other text paths and placing lettering how you want it. So if we go back into lettering, I'm going to go ahead out of this and just pick a standard TrueType font. And I say, okay, let's put it on any shape, right? See why you want that correcting option? Okay, testing 1, 2, 3, and we'll do it this way. I'll make this 2 lines. Okay. We'll select this path on any shape. That means when I go to click, I can make my path curved or straight. And you don't want to do, too severe, okay? But depending on how the letter's placed, you can see this one's gone on that up curve. This one, I'd probably have to edit a little bit and move these letters around. But I can also move the line around to fix it and get it to space out a little better. So I have a bunch of options on the text. Okay? And these little lines here let me do different things, like them out. See the little controls here. Okay? So I have a bunch of different options with the lettering. Let me go ahead and make a new file, and I'll show you the monogramming. The monogramming, you've got the fancy monogram, and then you've got these shapes. And this is more of a traditional monogramming, okay? I'm just going to say, okay, BMG, let's make this a bigger monogram, and click, there's my monogram. I have the option to resize it, and a traditional monogram. I can still these and change the colors, right? Let me go up and ungroup. So I group, and I can come in here and I can pick out the pieces and I can change the colors. Like maybe I want this to be blue. And the same thing with this. I would just come in here and pick the blue. So that's a traditional monogram. Let's look at a couple of the other options. Okay, you have a seal monogram or an octagon monogram. These are reshaped. Okay, when I type that in, and it shapes the monograms for me to a more traditional monogram. I can add a frame. You add a frame to lettering too, but this is more really for monogramming. Here's my frames and my borders, and I'll pick the heart, although I probably wouldn't necessarily do that. I can pick the border width and make that current, and I've got that a frame around my monogram. So these are kind of quick little monograms that you can create. So, you guys have any questions? No, you guys are all good? Okay, now one more. You're being
overwhelmed.
Oh, yeah, this is kind of like the let's go through and show you what it's got. And the webinars, the regular webinars, are more of now we're going to teach you how to do what it's got. And, so here I'm just kind of trying to show you what's in the program. There are an abundance of fills in the program, one of which is a stippling fill, so you can create quilt and hoop type of designs. You've got your standard fills, you've got pattern fills, and then, of course, you've got these little Florentine fills and complex fills. I just want to show you a couple of those, and then we'll go ahead and we'll finish up. And I'm going to pick. Here is my parallel fill, and I'm just going to make a big square. This is kind of a fun fill because you can see it looks almost like it's just going round and round and round, right?
Mm-hmm.
And on the circle, it's the same thing. I can change how this stitches, but it's kind of like a fun little fill. You could layer things, open this up a little more, close up a little bit more, and you can create some little effects with this particular fill. I also have the option of making it go, stitch a little bit different. Like if I go into the object properties and say, oh, make it bigger, make the stitch length, or change it to a different, type of spiraling type of fill. Okay, then there's a little bit of a change to that. I have to come up here and say, now forget that, we're just going to make it an embossed fill and pick a pattern. So I can change between these fills quite quickly. Okay. And now this fill was created with the spiral. Okay, and see how that looks? I put spiral, I said it was spiral, and then came in and changed that. If I go in, I just do a regular fill. And go in, down, and select this. Okay, fill now. Now, you know what? Let's do an embossed fill. And here's used. And say, okay. I get a different effect. So I have a lot of fill options in this. And, when we go through this in the webinars, we usually do circles and squares and play with the fills so that everybody gets comfortable with the settings, because you have really almost infinite fill options in the program, depending on how you make the shape or what you tell the shape to be. The same thing with your lines. We played with the lines a little bit, but there's a lot of really unique line options in here. Now, something else we have, I'm just going to, and you can see up here, I've got like these little, icons that kind of show up. Like here's stippling. I can change any of these settings. I can replace the original. I can keep the original, and I can change these settings. I'm going to just keep the original, change that color, and drag it off. So boom, there you go, stippling, right? Offset is an outlining tool. Remember I told you I would probably not outline in the automatic. I would use this because I can do some really neat things. Like I can offset this quite a bit. I can make it go to the inside, and I can make it, multiple times. So say, okay, let's go ahead and change the color so you can see what I did. And I guess it's not going to let me change it that way. Okay, there's one line. You know what? The easiest way to do that is just get rid of that main section. Okay, see my lines there? I told it 6 times. I set that setting. I can do this one time and just have one line created. I can actually make like a little bit of an echo quilting design. But I said 6 lines, so that's what I got, 6 lines. And so you have a lot of options in the program to be creative and to, create some unique designs. It really is a nice program, especially if you like a lot of texture and you're willing to put a little bit of time into learning how to, handle the different functions. Most of us buy a program and we go, gangbusters. We find the most difficult thing we've always wanted to create and throw it in the program. And generally, we're very disappointed. I always refer to it in my classes as, you wouldn't decide to take up golfing and go out tomorrow and expect to play like Tiger Woods. You would expect to, have a very long day on that golf course, or you would probably take some lessons and you would learn, the game of golf a little bit at a time. And that's the same thing with digitizing. Anybody can learn to digitize. You just have to, take the time, and once you know it, you know it. But putting that little bit of time in and learning what the program's capable of is going to make design creation a whole lot easier down the road for you guys. So, you guys have any questions?
You talk about having lessons. when and how do we access those?
On our website, we have a monthly webinar session, and we actually have they're twice a month, and this is how the webinar sessions go. They're about an hour and a half. I would like to say they're an hour, but they end up generally being an hour and a half. Um, and people, if they have to leave, they kind of leave because the videos of the webinar are always accessible afterwards. But we do that twice a month, and then we meet in a private group. We use Facebook, but you're always, free to email me direct too. But the Facebook private group is very private. The only people in the group are the people in the webinars. So we can, discuss any questions or homework. And if I'm not available, then you have access to the people in the group that can, probably answer some questions or, share some tips. I talked about assigning homework. I assign homework, and I generally kind of joke, you don't have to do the homework, but if you want to, do some of the work and send it in and say, I'm having trouble here, or what do you think of this, or what, you're more than willing to send me your design files and we'll look at them. I always ask people if it's okay to use them maybe or discuss it in the webinar or discuss it on Facebook page. If they're not comfortable with it, I don't. But, the goal is really to teach you to create what you want to create in the program. On our website, we have a link where you can sign up for the webinars. You can cancel at any time. And it is about, there's two options. There's, the people who know they want to go through all the webinars, it's a one-time fee, and it's a little bit of a discount. The ones that aren't sure, there's a monthly rate of $20 a month, and then you can just cancel it at any time, or you can cancel and come back if you're going on vacation, and, that type of thing. So if you are interested, let me know, and I'll send you the link to the page. And it is on our main page, so you can get to it from there as well. So how many of you guys are on the Facebook pages?
No.
No? Okay. I knew I had some. You're on our Facebook page? Okay. Judy is. Okay. We won't discuss the webinars on our main Facebook page. It's actually a group. So if you guys are nervous about being on Facebook, nobody can see any of your information. I'll help you set your settings to private. If we have enough people that don't like Facebook, we'll probably just set up maybe a little private Yahoo group. But Yahoo makes me very, very nervous because they've been hacked several times. You know what? Let me go ahead and turn off the recording too.